Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to a new real-life car review. A special real-life car review, because recently my channel hit 3,000 subscribers, for which I'm super grateful. And on the very day that I reached that subscriber count, Kia offered me to drive the all-new Kia EV3. And just by sheer coincidence, this is also episode 33 of real-life car reviews. So in this heavily 3-themed episode, we're going to find out what this very important and already very successful car for the Kia brand is all about. And I want to start off by doing an exterior walk around and discuss some details of the styling. The EV3 is the third model in Kia's EV lineup after the 6 and the 9. Kia has also recently introduced the Kia EV4, the larger brother of this car, which comes in two body styles, unlike the rest of the EV range. And they also announced the EV2, oh, car is locking down, and they also announced the EV2, which is the smaller brother of this car. The EV6 is the longest on the market and has a very different design language. The rest of the EV range follows the opposite united design language, and since this car has to cater to a broader buyer demographic, Kia has toned down the extremities of the design, so to speak. Not to say that it's real extreme design, but if you look at the recently introduced EV4, it's a bit more extreme in its design, especially the sedan version of that car, which isn't a pretty car, but I think it has a real interesting design. Anyway, looking at the EV3, I'm going to unlock the car. So the first thing that you'll notice is the black exterior details around the wheel arches, these lines over here, also in the C-pillar. That's something that we recognize from the EV9, and it's also something that you see in the number 2 and the number 4 version of the EV range. It has aerodynamic door handles, which in the base trim level are completely mechanic. In this car, when you approach it, they pop out so you can easily open a door. In the lower trim grade, you have to push it on the front to unlock the door. On the rear, you have the door handles over here. It's also for aerodynamic reasons, but if you have smaller children who are capable of getting in and out of the car, this may be a bit high, out of reach for them. But anyway, I think it's a real interesting design. It's a real basic 2-box design, short nose, because an electric motor doesn't need much space. There is no need for a large bonnet, and they created a cab forward design with a very straight roof. It's almost perfectly horizontal, level, which creates large door openings, making ingress and egress super easy, especially for the rear passengers. If you have a family and you need to put your kids in kid seats, having this nice wide door opening is super convenient. The car comes basically in 2 versions, so there are not 2 body styles like the EV4 has, a hatchback and a sedan, but you can tell the versions apart because in the upper trim levels you get gloss plastics, where the lower trim grades have just normal plastics or plastic color. They are not painted, and it comes in 2 wheel sizes, 17 and 19 inch wheels. This is the top of the range trim level, a GT line, GT Plus line, which comes with this unique 19 inch wheels. And they really try to put a square design in the wheels. It's not to my taste. I like the other version of the 19 inch wheels much better. The standard version comes on 17 inch alloy wheels. Let's also have a peek at the front end, because the different versions also get different front end stylings. Various versions of the Kia EV3 get different front end designs. So the front bumper design, the lower section is different. This is the top of the range trim level, which get this design. There are aero slots over here in the lower section of the bumper that open if extra cooling is needed. The big difference is in the headlights. This, being a top of the range trim level, gets a 12-element projector headlight. This being an almost 50,000 euro car, this top trim level, it does not have adaptive high beams, which I think is a little bit of a miss. It does of course have automatic high beams, work really well, but the lower trim grades get a reflector LED headlights, and I've seen both in action. These are only marginally better, so if you go for a lower trim grade and you depend on good headlights, if you live in a rural area like I do, it's good to know that the standard headlights are already fantastic. These are just marginally better, and in my opinion not worth spending extra money on unless you do want the higher trim levels for other reasons. It's the same story at the rear. The higher trim levels get a different bumper design, and also they get different headlights. The standard trim levels, the lower grades, only get this vertical element in the headlights, and the top of the range trim levels add this little light bar underneath the rear window to that. The car does have a rear wiper. It's hidden here in the bumper. I just washed the car, maybe you can see the traces, but that wiper covers quite a large area of the rear windows. It's a real useful, not an afterthought windscreen wiper. Now this car also has an electric trunk opener, but there is a function that when you approach the car with the key in your pocket and the car notices that you're approaching the tailgate, it automatically opens the tailgate. I don't believe it has a swiping function. Nope, it hasn't. So while we're at here, let's open up. It has a nice cargo space. I'll show you the details in screen. The standard capacity of the trunk is 460 liter, and that's with this double floor in its lowest position. Currently it's in its highest position, so it's level with the opening, so it's easier to get your shopping crates in here. And when you fold down the rear seats, you end up with a cargo space of 1251 liters. I will say this is a nice large opening. It's nice and square, and this is where the car really benefits from its square styling. It's just super practical, especially given the size, the length and the height of this car. Anyway, let's go over to the front and see what lives under the hood. Spoiler alert, there isn't much to see here. We do have two nice gas struts and quite a light hood. There is a 25 liter cargo compartment, and if you have small feet you can store 2 pairs of shoes in there. And here is a little compartment to access the battery, the brake fluid reservoir, and there's also an emergency wire cut for the emergency service if they need to rescue you from your car and the power needs to be cut. Anyway, the important thing to note here is that this is a front-wheel drive car, and I think for an EV in the standard version, having a front-wheel drive car is the better option for the majority of the drivers. When I tested the standard version of the Hyundai Ioniq 5 with rear-wheel drive, I noticed that that car can have some odd behavior, especially when you enter corners, and that has everything to do with regen braking under approaching a corner. So when you approach a corner, you lift your foot from the accelerator to slow down a little bit. You get a regen force, the braking torque on the rear axle, and it's almost like pulling the handbrake when you're entering a corner, and that disturbs the balance, and that can lead to a little shock reaction from inexperienced drivers. And I didn't find that nice at all. Having a front-wheel drive EV is the better option, especially under mild and harder regen braking. In this car, when you lift the accelerator, when you enter a corner, you get a balance shift towards the front axle, pressure on the front wheels that steer, and that results in a much safer, more predictable driving behavior, driving characteristic of the car. Now there is only one motor option in this car, and that's a 150 kilowatt or 204 horsepower electric motor with 283 newton meters of torque, and that results, depending on the battery size of the car and with that the weight of the car, in a 0 to 100 acceleration time of 7 to 7.5 seconds. There are two battery sizes available. Now I have to look up the exact numbers. The standard battery size is 58.3 kilowatt hours, and this has the larger battery pack of 81.4 kilowatt hours. The smallest battery pack can charge with a max of 101 kilowatt DC, and this version with 128 kilowatts DC, so that's a minute difference. And both versions have a 11 kilowatt onboard AC charger. Now, what range do you get out of it? Well, that depends on the wheel size and of course battery size. With 17-inch wheels and a smaller battery pack, you get up to 436 kilometers, and a small battery pack with a 19-inch wheels gets up to 440 kilometers, which is the lowest range of the EV model series. This version with 19-inch wheels, large battery pack, gets up to 563 kilometers, and realistically in this test week that has been 500 kilometers. I need a heater every now and then. The large battery pack and 17-inch wheels get up to 605 kilometers. So that's the largest range for the EV. Yeah, I think that are all my talking points about the electric motor. So that said, there's nothing much to see here. So let's close up the hood and let's have a peek in the interior, which I think is one of the best parts of this car. So, as said, ingress and egress in this car is super easy thanks to this nice large door opening, and in this version, in the other top trim level, the seat slides back to allow easier ingress and egress. So let's have a look at the interior. This is the well-known horizontal 2-screen layout. In fact, we have a 3-screen layout since Kia has added a little screen over here for the heater controls for the HVAC. Now it is somewhat obscured by this section of the steering wheel, but yeah, that is what it is. You also have physical buttons over here for the HVAC controls, so if you want to put it on and off or change the temperature, there are these nice toggle switches over here. What is new is the system behind the infotainment. It's now LG Web OS, so if you're weary of Google and Android, it's good to know that it's now an LG operating system. It looks almost the same as what we used to see in Kias. I will say this, it works nice. It's a nice clean user interface, very easy to understand. And below there you have the buttons to access, well, the home screen, the navigation, media and such. What I think is a nice touch is that we have a physical button, a scroll push button for the audio controls. I thought at first I'd much rather have a little rotary button that you can twist with your thumb and your index finger, but this is also very easy to use, this scroll wheel. And yeah, you operate it with your thumb, and the same is true, and I'm gonna close the door for a second over here, is that you have the buttons over here for the heated seats, heated steering wheel and the seat memories. Now, normally you have them in a horizontal plane, now they're on a vertical plane, but I find this easy to use. You put your hand on top of the door card and then you can easily push that. And what I did notice is when you're using this during driving, you don't have to move your head around, but you can just look from the corners of your eyes. So this makes complete sense. But let's open door a little bit so I can show you a bit of the nice styling of the door cards. I think it wouldn't look out of place in a sci-fi movie. We have a couple of stormtroopers driving around in this car with this styling. Yeah, it wouldn't look out of place. You have this little piece of fabric, and you have this fabric all over the dashboard. It's made from recycled materials, and that gives this interior a bit of a homely atmosphere. I think this is a real nice touch. And then again, the door card. You have a little bit of mood light over there, and as you can see, hopefully, there is a Harman Kardon audio system, which is good in my opinion. It doesn't excel in any area, but it's a nice, well-balanced system for this car. One big difference is the steering wheel. In the top of the train's version, the GT line, you get this steering wheel, whereas all the other versions have a 2-spoke horizontal layout. The button layout is the same. Always want to point out this little button over here, which activates and deactivates the lane departure warning, and also the steering assist, the lane centering assist. A short push is for the lane centering assist, and a longer push, if you keep it pressed in, you can switch off the lane departure warning. And this is a favorites button, which gives me, in this case, a direct shortcut to the driver aid, so I can switch off the speed limit quite easily, go back, and also the driver attention warning. That's that, and you can do that on the fly while driving. Another thing that I need to point out, you get these leather, like it's synthetic leather, and the top of the train's trim levels, and has the GT line logo embossed in this. One thing that really stands out for me is how soft these headrests are, real nice cushions. And another thing that I want to point out is how soft the cushions of the seats are. Quite large, deep seats, nice seat backs with good bolstering over here, and they are padded, they are really comfy. Another thing that well, most of the trim levels get is this little plank over here that you can slide out, and if you want to put your laptop on there, if you want to work while charging the car or at any other time, you can put your laptop on here, and this is quite sturdy. The only thing is you lose your little compartment over here. And the entry-level trim grade has a little pocket over here that can also hold a couple of smartphones, which is more useful. This is more of a gimmick. And over here in the lower section of the center console are the charger outlets, with the one that either can charge or become a data bus too. Both are USB-C, and over here, very neatly done, is the 12-volt outlet. This is the wireless phone charger, and we have two cup holders. They rotate back so you get a little bit more room in there, and there is a little room for storage over here. Anyway, I think this is a real nice interior, and this color combinations, light gray with white, is very tasteful, whereas the other trim levels have a more gray and black interior. But overall, the ergonomics and the space you have in this car are pretty darn good. Oh yeah, and another thing that I wanted to point out is that the door cards are quite flat, so they don't protrude much inwards, so that gives you a lot of room in the width of the car. So let's hop over to the rear passenger compartment to see what creature comforts we have over there. As said, you have a nice door opening, which is super convenient if you have smaller children that you have to put in kid seats. Very easy ingress and egress. Even though this car is classified as an SUV, you don't have a high entry, and the car floor is of course nice and flat, but it's very easy to get in and out. You don't have to get over a hump to get in and out, as said. Very interesting seat design. There's also this fabric on the rear seats, and you can see that there is an open mesh in the headrest for the front passengers. The rear seats have little USB-C outlets in both seats, and there's a map pocket in both seats, by the way. We have fans over here, and there's a little compartment for store goods. You can see here with the driver's seat in my driving position, I can stow my feet, at least my toes, under the driver's seat, and this is a very decent seating position. I will say that I don't have much headroom in this car, but again, they used light materials which brighten up this interior quite a bit. We do have an armrest with two cup holders, and the rear passengers also get, in this GT Plus line, a heated rear seat with 3 levels. Now let's also do the window test. And as you may expect, the view towards the outside is great. Quite a large window, and even smaller children can look outside pretty good because this line, the shoulder line, is quite low. This is a very decent place to be. They created a lot of interior space, as I mentioned before, also for the rear passengers. So I think it's about time to go on a drive. When I talked in the interior segment about the seats, I mentioned that the seats are quite comfortable, and that is indicative for the overall characteristic of this car. Let me first switch off the overspeed warning. There it is. And that one can be put out, as you can see. You can do it on the fly, but it is a little bit distracting, so do that before you drive off. So it's a comfortable car, and that's what I immediately noticed when I started driving this car. After I picked it up, I sat down, thought, hey, comfy seats, and I drove off. Ooh, this is a very comfy car. So I'm gonna take a little bit different test route on a bumpy road over here to show you what I'm talking about. So until recently, manufacturers always try to mask the higher weight of EVs by using stiffer springs. Well, that of course makes sense, and combined with a low center of gravity, because we have the battery pack between the wheels in the car floor. Oh, look, it's a nice Lexus. That makes that the handling for EVs was typically quite good, and they did a real good job in hiding the weight of the car. But when you went over speed bumps or short unevennesses in the road, like repairs or expansion joints, that kind of stuff, suspension could be quite harsh. And I especially noted that with the suspension of rear axle in EVs, That's not the case with the Kia EV3. I think they found a real nice, much softer suspension setup. This car doesn't try to be sporty in any way, and for the GT line, Kia also didn't alter the suspension setup, so it's one setup for the entire model range. The GT line is not intended as a sportier car, it's more a trim level. So overall it's a real comfy car. You can tell there's a lot of motion in the suspension setup. Here's a nice bump over here to demonstrate. Let's pick up some speed. It's nice and floaty. And if they use this suspension setup for the EV4, which has a slightly larger wheelbase, well, that may be a very, very comfortable car. And I think that's the one thing that stands out first and foremost about the Kia EV3. And the second thing that you'll note when you're driving this car, EVs by their very nature are quiet cars because of a lack of an engine, very little vibrations. They are very quiet. But Kia managed to quiet down the EV3 even more than a comparable Kia Niro. But you can tell having an EV on a dedicated EV platform does have its advantages, and I can tell this car is even more quiet than other EVs that I have driven before. But yeah, the tire noise, this car sets on Hankook tires, which are specially developed for EVs. They are super quiet, but also suspension noises. I feel really isolated from the outside world in this car, as there are no tire noises, no road noises, even on brick notes. You don't hear the tires, you don't hear the suspension. It's super comfy. It's a nice, quiet, isolated cocoon. It's a real nice car to relax in, and that combined with a soft, comfy suspension make for a real comfortable ride. You would say so far so good, but there are not only positives about this car. And one thing is the energy consumption. If you've seen other Kia EV reviews, you probably know that this car has gathered some critique for its not superb energy efficiency. Now, honestly, it's not all that bad. Currently I'm driving and my average energy consumption is 19 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which isn't great. The best energy consumption that I ever got from an EV was in the Hyundai Ioniq. So that's the Prius-like model, and then in its electric version I got an average energy consumption of 14 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which until now is my record. And none of the other EVs that I've driven afterwards got that energy consumption number. But anyway, the average energy consumption number is 19 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And is that a problem? I'm not sure. It depends on how you use your car, how much you drive on a day. And I think it's mostly down to the aerodynamics of this car. It does have a real good coefficient of drag, but we have to keep in mind that that number is a relative number, not an absolute number. If you compare it with the Kia Picanto that I drove in the previous real-life car review, that car may have a higher coefficient of drag, but in absolute number, that smaller car has much less wind resistance. It's, sounds obvious, but to most people that isn't. If you look at the upcoming Kia EV4, which is available as a hatchback and a sedan, the sedan has better aerodynamics, and that translates in a lower energy consumption and a larger range, of course, on the same battery size. So what are my thoughts on the energy consumption of the Kia EV3? Well, they are a little bit disappointing, but we have to keep in mind that this is the heavier car with a larger battery pack, as tested 1785 kilos, whereas the standard battery size is 1700 kilos. But I think it's also down to the wheel size of this car. If you get a car with smaller wheels, with 17-inch wheels, you get better energy efficiency. And as I said, there's only one engine option available, but the performance of this car, let's accelerate a little bit. It's smooth. The 283 Newton meters are there with a flick of your thumb, in a blink of an eye. As said, as for the majority of the drivers, the power numbers of this car suit the needs for most of them. I personally have nothing to complain about the performance numbers, the acceleration of this car, and I think the setup, especially how the car responds to the accelerator pedal, is nice and linear. You can get in this car and drive off as if you've always driven this car. Maybe the only thing that you have to get used to is the operation. I have the gear shift lever of the transmission with this rotary button over here. The park button is on the outside, and what's also new is that the power on, so the on-off switch for the entire car is also over here. It's a little bit hidden out of sight, but takes a couple of days to get used to. And we're driving on the highway. This car also has the latest version of the highway drive assist, which in my opinion works really well. The acceleration and deceleration of the adaptive cruise control are great, are smooth. And this car also has assistance for overtaking, but it's very careful in its movements, I must say. It takes a lot of time to change lanes and to change lanes back, and it keeps the indicator on all the time. Yeah, it's nice to have if you drive in an area or in a road situation where you're unfamiliar with the roads and traffic. But yeah, if you're a good driver and you observe the mirrors, it's better to overtake by yourself. And this car also has park assist, and there are buttons on the keys that you can use to drive the car out of a parking spot. But yeah, that is maybe nice to have if you often park your car in real tight parking garages, so you can maneuver your car in and out of a parking spot. But yeah, to me it doesn't make much sense, but it's nice to have for some people. The highway drive assist isn't the only system that has received updates and upgrades. It's also the regenerative braking. Kia used to use 4 levels, now they use 3 levels, and it works with an iPedal, intelligent pedal. When the car signals that the car in front is stopping you, you lift off the accelerator and the car comes to a complete stop and only starts driving off if you use the throttle pedal again. It's different than an auto hold function, and I think it works real well in reality. And another important thing to note about regen braking is that in level 1 you have just normal regen braking as you would have in an internal combustion engine car. The brake lights don't switch on. That only happens when you have it set to level 2 or 3, and that's where you really have a braking torque on the front axle that acts like a real brake, and only then the rear brake lights switch on. So I think I've touched upon all my talking points for the drive segment. I'm gonna continue driving to it a little bit calmer because I see my energy consumption number go down a little bit. So I'm driving to the middle of nowhere, let you know what my energy consumption is once I get there, and then I'll give you my final thoughts on the new Kia EV3. See you in a minute. As I mentioned, Kia already has a car in this class of vehicle, namely the Kia Niro EV, but it's clear to see where the improvements are with the new EV3. Not only is it ride and comfort much better, also the interior technology is updated, and when you compare it to competitors outside the brand, yeah, this car makes a real good chance of reaching the top spots in car sales in this class of vehicle. So as said, it's clear to see where the improvements are with this new generation of EV from Kia, but it's also clear where the improvements could have been, and that's in the energy efficiency. Now there is one thing that I didn't discuss in the drive segment, and that's the fact that this car does not have a heat pump. It's not available over here, and I'm not even sure if it's available on the EV3 in other markets. But Kia's reasoning is that a heat pump would add at least 1,000 euros to the base price of a car, and that it is primarily used to heat a battery, especially in wintertime when you want to prepare the battery for charging. But I think having a heat pump on this car would greatly improve the energy efficiency of this car. And if you, like me, have to rely on public chargers where energy prices are pretty steep at this moment, yeah, I think it would take less than a year to get your return on investment for the €1,000 that the heat pump may cost. So that kind of is a missed opportunity for Kia. Maybe they'll add it later on, I'm not sure. But if you have your own driveway with solar panels on the roof, if you have affordable electricity in your home, and you can charge it at home, that energy consumption is much less of an issue. And as I pointed out, it's mainly true for the versions with the 19-inch wheels. I've spoke to a colleague who drove the entry trim level of this car on 17-inch wheels, and he told me that the energy efficiency of that EV3 is much better. So all in all, this top of the range trim level is a great car to live with, but I personally think the majority of the public will also be super happy with the entry trim levels of the new Kia EV3, with prices starting off at €36,000 over here. That can vary for your market, and a really good standard equipment in terms of safety, infotainment, all the things that you need and more are already there on the base trim levels. The higher trim levels add more luxury and more creature comforts, but as said, the base trim levels are already very well equipped. But all in all, I'm really impressed with this car, especially the way it drives, how the suspension comfort is set up. Yeah, that shows us that we're entering a new generation of EVs, and I think, as said, Kia EV does do a great job at that and makes a great chance of reaching the top of the sales list. Anyway, that's it for this 33rd real life car review. I hope you liked following me along and that you don't mind my squinty eyes in this hot sun. Anyway, if you did like following me along, let me know by subscribing to my channel, give me a like, and if you have any questions or constructive feedback, let me know down below in the comment section. And if you would like to help support the channel, you can do so by buying me a coffee. I will also leave the link for that in the description box. For now, I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye!